Do me a favor. Could you say senator instead of ma'am?
I love these members that get up and say, read the bill.
What difference at this point does it make?
The whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
We know that the free market is nonsense.
This liberal will be all about socializing, will be about basically taking over and the government running all of your companies.
The time has come for unfiltered, politically incorrect common sense. Welcome to the wild world of Cowboy Logic.
This is a Cowboy Logic alert. Election update. Wiener stays in. Actually, I changed that. That's a Matt Drudge headline. It actually says erection update. I swear to God. Headline
I would
news
expect
on Matt
that.
Drudge.
I would expect something like that out of me, not you. Oh my God.
Balls to the wall coverage. I stopped just reading the headlines off Drudge. You can't make this stuff up. This is a Cowboy Logic alert. Yes, Anthony's wiener is all that seems to make the news. It doesn't matter that we have an IRS that's basically totally going to run our lives and we're letting them run amok all over our freedoms. This is a Cowboy Logic alert. The Zimmerman trial has ended. Go in peace. This is a Cowboy Logic alert. The Royals had a baby. Yes. We don't know his name yet, but they had a baby. And congratulations to Kate.
I wonder if any of this had anything to do with a wiener.
Congratulations to Kate. They are all... Yes, the Royals had a baby, but the press in London is actually saying, isn't it great? Her first try, she had a boy. Like, it's called a 50-50 chance, buddy. Sorry. This is a Cowboy Logic alert. Anthony's wiener. Stop. Will you stop?
I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
I'm done with the...
This is just... It's absurd. Will you stop it? This is a Cowboy... It's like I have a Pavlovian response.
Exactly.
Did that for 7 or 8 years. This is a Cowboy Logic alert. Oh, it's 8 pounds, 6 ounces, the baby boy was. Third in line for the throne. Heir he is. H-E-I-R. Heir he is.
Why don't we get on to some serious news?
Well, that's the whole point. They don't want to do the serious news. Because we have the IRS scandal. We have Obamacare becoming a total train wreck. We have, of course, the NSA spying on us, and we're worrying about Edward Snowden. We have the situation where Al Sharpton has all these supposed protests when 73% of babies born to African Americans are born out of wedlock. The public schools are a failure. Fathers are not involved. Moms are encouraged to have kids out of wedlock. That's the real crisis, Reverend Al. If you're really a reverend, focus on that, please. But see, you can't because there's no money in that. There's no headlines in that. And for our president to be in tune with this, to actually get involved with this is reprehensible. It's so unpresidential in my opinion. It's just not funny. The President of the United States should butt out. Okay? He's not a community activist. He was, and he obviously still is. And we now have, to me, Al Sharpton in the White House. And it's just ludicrous. Speaking of which... I
wonder if Barack Obama had a reverend, if he would look like Al Sharpton.
Yeah, well, he does. Reverend Wright. GD America. Remember him?
Oh, yeah.
The guy who he never listened to for 23 years but married him and baptized his daughters. That's a whole different thing. The military is looking for atheist chaplains. Again, this is the breakdown of the American society, in my humble opinion. This is all part of it. The tangled web we weave by trying to get rid of the family, trying to get rid of fathers, telling mothers it's okay to have kids out of wedlock, we'll take care of you, and the breakdown of the American family as well as religion in America. You have to attack it. So, can you explain to me how you have an atheist chaplain?
What do they believe in?
Isn't that an oxymoron?
Yeah.
Okay. If you're an atheist, why would you need a chaplain? That's my question. And this is a slap. This is a Cowboy Logic alert. The Zimmerman trial has ended. I have a question. Has anybody ever seen George Zimmerman and Forrest Gump at the same time? You do know what I'm referring to.
I do.
Okay. If you guys don't know, apparently yesterday, or it happened over the weekend, but the news just broke yesterday, that George Zimmerman, who was trying to lay low, passed an accident involving an overturned vehicle that was about to catch on fire. It had 2 little kids in it and 2 parents. And what does George do? No, he doesn't keep going. George has a fire extinguisher in his car. He hops out. He pulls everybody to safety. Talk about being in the right place at the right time. Or in the case with Trayvon Martin, the wrong place at the wrong time. But the point is, to me, he's like Forrest Gump. The guy can't help it. He just shows up.
Well, the other thing that you need to point out here is that half of Florida, well, now let me back up. There's a massive number of people that would like to take him out. He's had death threats. His family's had death threats. His lawyers have had death threats. And the guy still gets out of his car to help somebody.
That's just the way he is. He's not a cop wannabe. He's a helpful person, okay? This whole Zimmerman thing, the whole trial, and the Trayvon Martin thing was a tragedy. There's no doubt about it. But you have had dozens of black children and adults killed in Chicago since this Zimmerman trial has been going on, black on black crime. And I feel that as a white person, it's hard for me to talk about it. And we will have a round table discussion next week, and I'm sure this is going to come up with some African Americans who can actually, I feel, talk better to this. Because having grown up in that type of environment and made something of themselves, I think that's obviously going to have a lot more impact. But from somebody looking on the outside in, I can tell you one thing. If something happens to Zimmerman, you can bet your backside that Eric Holder should be responsible, because Eric Holder is not allowing Zimmerman to have his gun back, which he legally has a permit for. And as
I believe, let me interrupt you. Mm-hmm. I believe that our guest tonight, Sheriff Shayne Heap, is providing Zimmerman with a new firearm.
Are you serious?
No, I'm not serious.
Oh, okay. No, I was going to say, you didn't tell me that. I do want to ask Shayne about that. This is a Cowboy Logic alert. The Royals have had a baby boy.
Oh, my gosh.
Will you stop?
Yeah,
gosh,
I'll stop.
She's really bad. We do have a great show ahead, everybody. I hope you stay with us. We're going to have a lot of fun, as you can tell. And we are so politically incorrect, we are going to tell you what the mainstream media will not tell you. And our guest coming at the bottom of the hour is Elbert County, Colorado Sheriff Shayne Heap, who put out a message to President Obama that has gone viral on the internet. We're going to play that for you, and we'll be talking to Sheriff Heap later on in the show as well.
I would label that not a message to Barack Obama. I would label that as a schooling.
Yeah. And rightly so.
I think the video says own. Colorado sheriff owns President Obama. But
I agree with that.
It was a schooling. Mm-hmm. And, Obama has had a few of these schoolings throughout his terms, one of which was when Bibi Netanyahu schooled him in the Oval Office. This is another schooling.
Vladimir Putin.
This is another schooling.
Yeah, but he doesn't care. He doesn't listen. He doesn't care. He's arrogant. he is a tyrant, in my opinion. There's no doubt about it, and he makes no bones about it. And we'll talk to Sheriff Shayne Heap coming up at the bottom of the hour. I also want to say we had an unbelievable response to our show last week with Billy Vaughn, Karen Vaughn, and Major General Paul Vallely talking about the book that exposes the travesty, really, that was Extortion 17. The name of the book is called Betrayed, Exposing the High Cost of the War on Terror by Billy Vaughn and General Vallely. Billy and Karen are the proud parents of Aaron Carson Vaughn, who was killed August 6th, 2011, when their Chinook helicopter went down in Afghanistan, along with 30 other members of SEAL Team 6 in a very, very suspect crash. And Aaron, of course, was part of the SEAL Team 6 that got Osama bin Laden. And there's a lot of controversy around that, and the book clarifies a lot of stuff. And I hope you do get it. It's a good read, and it's out in August, but you can get it now by going to specialopsbetrayed.com. That's specialopsbetrayed.com. You can buy the book, again, Betrayed, Exposing the High Cost of the War on Terror by Billy Vaughn and General Paul Vallely, who, by the way, is StandUpAmericaUS.org, and we are proud to partner with General Vallely and the Stand Up America folks, and it's just awesome to be a part of it. The show has just taken off since we've partnered with them, and we're very proud to be part of it.
Speaking of which, we have picked up a new sponsor, Nemo Arms.
Ooh.
And please, if you like firearms, go to nemoarms.com. Nemoarms.com is based out of Montana, and they are some of the baddest weapons that I have ever seen in my entire life. And Sheriff Heap, if you're listening, I think you need to put your order in. I don't think you'll have any problems with these firearms. At any rate, nemoarms.com. Awesome. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said they're awesome. They're like the Rolls Royce of arms, firearms.
I'm going to tell you what the definition of hot is. And that would be Donna shooting the 300 Win Mag from Nemo Arms. If I can ever get a picture of that, it'll go on Facebook. It will go viral.
Probably
and
throw
it
me
will
backwards
be hot.
right on my backside, too.
Yeah, exactly. No, not bad.
You know, I again, speaking of Extortion 17 as well, I want to mention something that is not on any of the headlines, but I did find it today. It was just a passing headline that I heard. A roadside bomb killed 3 more of our heroes in Afghanistan. It was detonated by a terrorist, they said an insurgent. I'm calling it a terrorist riding on a donkey along the side of the road. And he blew himself up, and he took out 3 of our heroes as well. This is insane. We need to get out of there. We need to bring our troops home, and we need to put them on the border. Of course, I'm just whistling Dixie, I know.
Well, you got to fight John McCain to do that.
Yeah, John McCain, who stands there. And you know what? And I do appreciate his service.
John McCain's
but
not going to do
he's
anything
senile.
for the borders.
I'm going to say it. He's senile, okay?
I was doing a real damn good impression.
Yeah, I know, and I'm ignoring him because I can't even stand listening to him. I'm sorry. I love the guy for his service, but I really do believe mandatory retirement should be forced on some of these people. And take Harry Reid with you as well. Obamacare could push 1 million Americans from work to welfare. The real unemployment rate is 3% or more higher than what the government is telling us, because if you just go over to a friend's house and you help him, put a screen in his window, you've worked for the day, so you don't count. This is absurd. The actual definition of looking for work has changed.
We've got a pretty intelligent audience, and a lot of times I feel like I'm preaching to the choir and you're preaching to the choir when we're talking about some of this stuff. Mm-hmm. I would say that 90% of the people that listen to Cowboy Logic Radio know exactly what Cloward and Piven is, the Cloward and Piven strategy. But you know what? When you go out and you talk to all your friends, they look at you like a deer in the headlights.
You're a conspiracy theorist. That's what you are.
They don't even know what you're talking about.
Oh.
Now, here's what we need to do. We don't need to sit around and talk about Cloward and Piven on the air because, again, we've got an intelligent bright, learned audience. But the thing is, we need for you guys to go out and talk to everybody you know, your friends, your family, your coworkers. Take it into work. I do. And it took a while for work to be able to relate to that. Mm-hmm. But now they're all going, oh my God, you were right. Okay? Talk to people about Cloward Piven. Talk to people about the movie 2016.
Yeah.
Talk to people about Extortion 17. Talk to people about Sheriff Shayne Heap.
You know what you need to do? And I think we should put this on Cowboy Logic. Illogical liberal talking points. I'm so sick of hearing, two unfunded wars and look how many people have been killed. I noticed when Bush was president, every once in a while we'd put on CNN, very rarely, and they always had a number of people killed. I don't believe they do that anymore. And thanks to Billy and Karen Vaughn last week when we were speaking to them, they told us that 71% of all Afghanistan deaths have happened the past 4 years. We've been there since 2001, you know.
That's an excellent point.
Well, Afghanistan and Iraq. But you're not going to hear that now because you've got a Democrat in office. Just like when I lived in New York City, there were no homeless once, Giuliani was out of office. The homeless were horrible in New York City when Giuliani was in office, but, they disappeared after he got out of office. Same with Bill Clinton. The mainstream media has tunnel vision. Speaking of the mainstream media, new addition to the mainstream media.
Oh, yeah.
Al Jazeera TV.
Yeah.
Thank you, Al Gore. You would not sell your TV network to Glenn Beck, but you'll sell it to Al Jazeera. And guess who's going to be one of the anchors of Al Jazeera TV? Soledad O'Brien. Yes, she's going over from CNN to Al Jazeera TV.
She was always highly nauseating.
Well, yeah, but the point is, this has to show you the agenda that the mainstream media has. David Schuster, whom I worked with at Fox, who went to MSNBC after he had some problems at Fox, is also going to Al Jazeera. A guy named Josh Bernstein, an investigative reporter from Denver. Andrea Stone from the Huffington Post.
Oh, man.
And Barack Obama. No, I'm only kidding.
Is he going to do the editorial page?
Yeah, really. But Soledad O'Brien. And the president is Kate O'Brien. I don't believe any relation there. Who is formerly the senior vice president of ABC News. So that is Al Jazeera TV, folks. Al Jazeera English, which is set to launch, I believe, mid-August. Here in the United States, Al Jazeera English. Reporters in Egypt, however, for Al Jazeera are quitting because they are being told to air pro-Muslim Brotherhood reports. Gee, what do you think is going to happen here?
Why do I think that Elena Kagan will probably have something to do with it?
Yeah, really. Oh, my God.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the United States of America, which is no longer a constitutional republic.
I was thinking the other day, how people in passing used to say, I can say that, it's a free country, or I can do that, it's a free country. That kind of rings hollow now. You really can't. A lot of people think twice before they speak now. A lot of people are looking at their neighbors. A lot of people are much more racially divided, thanks to Barack Obama, basically putting out the call to racially divide this country, when I feel he could have just let the
he could have done exactly the opposite of what he's done.
Yeah, he could have been, in my book, and I really hoped for it, a racial uniter. And to me, he's put race relations back 35 years.
I got to tell you, though, that ever since we had K. Carl Smith on the show with the Frederick Douglass Republicans, what has this been, a month ago?
Yes.
I have converted 3 of my black colleagues and friends that were huge Obama supporters, and they have now become Frederick Douglass Republicans. And I feel pretty damn good about that.
Well, I would say I have no problem with you being proud if you're an African American, and I hate to say be hyphenated, I don't consider myself an Italian American.
Well,
I'm an
I
American.
consider myself to be an Irish.
You're a mutt.
Yeah, okay.
You're absolutely a mutt. But you're very healthy. See, is your nose wet there?
No.
Okay. But, all right. And most black friends of mine call themselves black. Okay. They don't hyphenate themselves. But if you are a conservative African American or a black, however you want to call yourself, please check out Frederick Douglass Republicans, because there is a quandary for those of you who want to work and who want to pay your taxes and who want to have a better life for your kids, no matter what your color is. But this is a way for more conservative blacks to not be so vilified. It's a way they can come back, and there are talking points on this website, and the people who are involved with it actually have got it set up. If you educate yourself about who Frederick Douglass was, you realize then you can't play the race card. And therefore, when you say conservative, you don't have that stigma attached to it. So if you can look it up, it's Frederick Douglass with 2 S's, Frederick, Douglass, Douglass, Republican, singular.com and .org. Please look that up, educate yourself. And they talk about how the education system is failing our children, and immigration is being forced on us by design to basically blur our borders and hurt the people who are here legally.
Well, and this is also a way for any white people that have this huge guilt, okay, that are, a lot of the white liberals have massive guilt for some reason about slavery, okay? Even though probably their ancestors weren't even in this country at that time.
My ancestors didn't come here till
but having said
the turn
that,
of the century.
These white people that have major guilt problems can now become a Frederick Douglass Republican, and they can call themselves black.
Well, and it's really
you missed
just,
that.
Sorry. But the thing is, it's just, it helps you educate yourself, and it helped me educate myself too. And Frederick Douglass lived at the time of Lincoln, and he was a slave until he was 20, and he died equivalent, really, of a multimillionaire. He made something of himself through hard work, and for anybody, black, white, Hispanic, whatever you are, white, Hispanic.
Now, listen, there's something that we're not going to have time to touch on right now that we need to at least mention, and that's the social engineering, and that's a catchphrase that conservatives need to start using on a regular basis, because that's exactly what's happening to our country. Social fricking engineering. All right? And that has to do with this mapping that's going on by the Housing and Urban Development.
Yeah, something else you don't see on the headlines, because all you look at is Anthony's Wiener, the Royals, and Zimmerman. Anthony's Wiener, by the way. This is a Cowboy Logic alert. Carlos Danger.
Carlos Danger.
That was what Anthony called his wiener.
That was his, like, what do you call it?
His love handle.
That was his name on what? The social sites?
You can't make this. You just can't make this stuff up.
My name is Carlos.
Carlos Danger. I don't always sext, but when I do, I am Carlos Danger.
I do it with both hands tied behind my back. At any rate, we do need to, at some point, either later on tonight or quite possibly just in diatribes on Cowboy Logic's Facebook site, really get into this mapping, because I'm telling you something, it's multifaceted. There's a lot of angles that they're going to be able to utilize with this that none of us are interested in. And one of them, in my opinion, that I haven't heard anybody talking about is to bolster and secure more of the Democrat vote.
Well, if you look at the map, much of the rural area voted Republican, and square miles wide, it was way off the charts compared to.
Well, if you look at red versus blue on the right. map of the United States, the entire map is red.
Yeah, and so this way, what they're doing, I don't. If you're from New Jersey, anybody remember the Mount Laurel decision, where they actually said, well, we have to look at certain neighborhoods, and if there's not enough low-income housing, you got to build them. And what it was really was a way for lawmakers to make money, because they got paid off not to put them in the rich areas. But what HUD is doing is they are going to racially map by zip code, every single zip code in this country. Okay? Does that make you feel good? What I want to know is, why are all the legitimate law-abiding citizens giving up all their rights? And all those who came here illegally, who also might have illegal guns, nobody cares about, because they're not going to follow the law anyhow. I think we need to wake up, Mr. and Mrs. America. This is not a black, white, Hispanic thing. This is an American thing, and we are losing our rights. Be back in a minute.
Out on the web at cowboylogic.us.
You're listening to Cowboy Logic Radio, the official radio show of StandUpAmericaUS.org.
And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, milk cows, work all day in the fields, milk cows again, eat supper, then go to town and stay past midnight at a meeting of the school board. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to sit up all night with a newborn colt and watch it die, then dry his eyes and say, maybe next year. I need somebody who can shape an axe handle from a persimmon sprout, shoe a horse with a hunk of car tire, who can make harness out of hay, wire, feed sacks, and shoe scraps, who planting time and harvest season will finish his 40-hour week by Tuesday noon, and then painin' from tractor back put in another 72 hours. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody strong enough to clear trees and heave bales, yet gentle enough to yean lambs and wean pigs and tend the pink-combed pullets, who will stop his mower for an hour to splint the broken leg of a meadowlark. So God made a farmer. It had to be somebody who'd plow deep and straight and not cut corners. Somebody to seed, weed, feed, breed, and rake and disc and plow and plant and tie the fleece and strain the milk. Somebody who'd bail a family together with the soft, strong bonds of sharing. Who would laugh and then sigh and then reply with smiling eyes when his son says that he wants to spend his life doing what Dad does. So God made a farmer.
Hey, this is Nick Polizos, Captain Conservative from Low Tar Radio, and you are listening to Cowboy Logic Radio on the American Pride Network.
The Cowboy Logic phone lines are now open. Give us a call at 917-675-3200. That's 917-675-3200. And liberals, We feel your pain, so we created a special number just for you. And it's a California area code. How appropriate. 310-299-2899 is our liberal helpline. Liberals, give us a call too. We're open-minded here on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Hello, my name is Scott Winchell. I'm the National Editor-in-Chief at StandUpAmericaUS.org, and I listen to Cowboy Logic, and I hope you do too.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. Their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance, yes. When cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Don Neuen, co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio, wears Vallely hats exclusively from the Cowboy Shop, and so can you. Visit thecowboyshoponline.com or call them at 888-854-6913. That's 888-854-6913.
And another day of
It doesn't matter if you live in Georgia, the U.S., or for that matter, anywhere in the world. The Cowboy Shop will deliver right to your door. Visit the Cowboy Shop for clothing, boots, hats, home decor, saddles, and horse gear. Even children's clothing, anything cowboy, you'll find it at thecowboyshoponline.com or call them at 888-854-6913. The Cowboy Shop, for the little cowboy in all of us. Yay!
I'm Shayne Heap, Sheriff of Elbert County, Colorado. This is in response to President Obama's visit on April 3rd, 2013. We are deeply saddened that it has taken the tragic events of this last year for people to take notice of the fundamental violence problems that we have in our country. We also deeply regret that these tragic events have only served to be a launching point for political agendas and grandstanding. A more intense discussion should be about why people are acting out so violently and using any kind of instrument they can find, even if it's driving a car into a Walmart and attacking innocent people with a club. First of all, we respect the right of our fellow law enforcement organizations who operate in urban settings to pass local laws which work best for their needs. We, unlike our state legislature, know that there are very different needs from urban and rural departments. That's why we elect local law enforcement. The source of frustration, and in some cases, the passionate speaking out of some of our fellow sheriffs, is because of the extreme measures of our state legislature. To enact laws that are both constitutionally questionable and punitive to law-abiding citizens who have done nothing wrong borders on legislative abuse. We're in favor of keeping guns out of the hands of violent criminals, but we believe it can be done without stripping the rights of law-abiding citizens. This must stop. The President flew in today from Washington, D.C., which has the highest per capita murder rate in the nation, and he wants to tell Colorado what to do. We are frustrated with this kind of political hypocrisy. Mr. Obama has fought vehemently for the right to use drone strikes in foreign countries without cumbersome bureaucratic oversight. We applaud his tactic of addressing the source of terrorism and violence through these strikes. However, His domestic policy has been to legislatively carpet bomb law-abiding citizens with excessive restrictions. He continues to fail in addressing the violence in our society, which operates outside the law and outside his broad legislative attack on constitutional rights. He has spent billions of dollars and countless American lives defending our border between Afghanistan and Pakistan, even venturing into Pakistan over the objections of its government to root out violence. Yet our borders remain porous, and illegal guns stream across unabated, endangering both our citizens and all of the innocents involved in border crossings. He has spent billions providing much-needed protection for school children in foreign countries, and yet has not spent one dime to give an armed protection to our children's schools. Why aren't our children and our border defended? Why won't he treat us at least as well as he treats foreign countries? He came here today to push his political agenda in our state and laud the legislative excess of fellow extreme legislators. He's been part of the choir that leverages tragedy to enact extreme legislation, which ignores the root problems of violence and anger in our country. Had these new gun laws been in effect in Newtown, they would not have stopped the senseless massacre of innocent children, because the shooter used someone else's legally purchased guns. The long-term ineffectiveness of Mr. Obama's actions and political showmanship only lacked a flight suit, aircraft carrier, and a sign proclaiming mission accomplished. The political hypocrisy of our state legislature is no different. While they push to enact extreme restrictions against honest citizens' Second Amendment rights, they also try to abolish the death penalty. This just as the prosecution begins in their case against the shooter in the Aurora Theater massacre. It is fundamentally wrong to be increasing restrictions on those who have committed no crime while easing the punishment for one of the most vicious killers in recent history. That should alert all of us that the present legislative majority is not acting for the long-term interest of our state, and they are not truly committed to reducing crime, but simply promoting their social agendas. We firmly believe the citizens of Colorado are being misled by politicians who promise that restricting and punishing law-abiding citizens who have done nothing wrong will somehow change the actions of those using and obtaining guns illegally. You cannot stop criminals by punishing the 99.9% of honest people. While it is politically expedient, it's tactically ineffective. Rather than partisan politicians, we need statesmen who will admit we have a deeper problem of violence in our country and address it with wisdom. Anyone who dares challenge the present extreme political environment is maligned and demonized. Even so, we must speak out. We're the first responders to violent people with guns. And because our deputies bravely stand between the innocent victims and the shooters, we, more than anyone else, want to prevent violent people from using any instrument which can kill or harm others. We want enforceable laws that address the criminals and not innocent citizens. As long as we have a culture of violence in our country, people will find ways to commit atrocities. We should not rest until we've addressed this culture of violence, rather than just the instruments that they choose to use. We want leaders to discuss how people get so emotionally distraught, and yet family, neighbors, friends, and even some doctors ignore all the warning signs. We want real solutions that work, not grandstanding and unenforceable laws that promote social agendas over the real protection of our citizens. It is time we get real with the problems facing our state and our nation, and quit using fear and legislative grandstanding to enact more regulations that only serve to punish honest citizens. We plead for statesmen who have the courage to take the lead in dispelling the political divisions driven by our leaders for their own advancement. We want the violence to stop, not just left unaddressed so it can find a new instrument of death when the guns are all gone.
You know, do me a favor. Could you say senator instead of ma'am?
I love these members that get up and say, read the bill.
What difference at this point does it make?
The whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
We know that the free market is nonsense.
This liberal will be all about socializing, will be about basically taking over and the government running all of your companies.
The time has come for unfiltered, politically incorrect common sense. Welcome to the wild world of Cowboy Logic.
Welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio. Good evening, everyone. I'm DONNA FIDUCIA, along with Don Neuen. And just before that bottom of the hour break that you heard with our esteemed politicians making total idiots of themselves, you heard Sheriff Shayne Heap and a video that has gone absolutely viral, really, over 700,000 views between the two videos that he has. And we do want to welcome him here to Cowboy Logic Radio, Elbert County Colorado Sheriff Shayne Heap. And hello there, sir. How are you?
I'm well, Donna. How are you doing, ma'am?
Great. Ma'am. You know, I never was called ma'am till I came to Georgia, but I kind of like it now. And I don't mind doors being open for me either. You know, well, you know, Shayne, what you have needs to be heard, because I'm sure you echo what a lot of law enforcement sheriffs and police chiefs out there and the folks that are on the front line are getting frustrated, really. I mean, we saw it last week when we talked with the Vaughns and General Vallely about their son who was killed in Extortion 17 over in Afghanistan, and how our troops over there have to fight with their hands essentially tied behind their backs because of political correctness. But it seems to be seeping into policing here at home, isn't it?
Yeah, and, you know, seeping seems to be an understatement at best. You know, the regulations that they've imposed, you know, do absolutely nothing more than, you know, really just decrease the regulations or increase the regulations on honest people, and, you know, criminals, you know, we're just decreasing regulations on them as we go.
Yeah, one thing you mentioned quite a bit in your video is how maligned and demonized those who really follow the law are, and outlaws and criminals, just by virtue of what they are, they could care less.
Absolutely, and you know, and if you're willing to stand up and say something, that goes for anybody that goes against the current leadership.
Tell us a little bit about what's happening in Denver as far as magazines are concerned and guns.
Well, there's two bills that Governor Hickenlooper signed, and, you know, one of them, it's House Bill 1224 and 1229, and, you know, one of them speaks to the magazine capacity, and, you know, we started at 10 rounds when it first got into the House, and then they changed it to 15, and but, you know, really the kicker to that bill is they're talking about, you know, if a magazine can be readily convertible. So I don't know of hardly any magazines out there that you can't take the base plate off. So effectively, you know, in essence, what it does is make every magazine illegal, because, you know, and you understand that you can take the base plate off of a magazine and you can add an extension on it. Well, that's readily convertible. So right there, pretty much an unenforceable law as far as, you know, 55 of the 64 sheriffs in Colorado see it. And, you know, the next one was House Bill 1229. And, you know, again, you're talking about a bill that's, you know, they're just unenforceable, and that's a background check. And, you know, we already had background checks. And, you know, I love how the mainstream media talks about how, you know, 90% of the population believes in background checks. And, you know, and I don't dispute that, but we already have background checks, and what they're doing is they're trying to tack on more and more regulations to it, and saying that, you know, in a private treaty sale, you know, you're now responsible for performing a background check on someone, and, you know, an online sale, you're responsible, or, you know, both parties are responsible in some way. And, you know, we're just talking about totally unenforceable laws.
Sheriff, a lot of what I think that you were mentioning is that a lot of what you're having to deal with right now is a problem with not being able to enforce all of the regulations and the laws, not only with magazines and firearms and background checks, but with the legalized weed, everything that's going on right now. It seems like they're making it to where you can't enforce it.
Well, and the interesting thing about all of these bills that, you know, that went through our legislators this year, you know, at one point there was 37-ish sheriffs standing down there at the Capitol, and the question was asked by one of the Republican senators: how many of you, if any of you, were contacted when these bills were in the writing stage, to get your input on, is this something that we can do? Is this something that's, even possible? And not a single sheriff that was standing there was ever contacted to talk about, even the good example is shotguns. They were talking about, shotguns had to only carry, or couldn't carry more than 8 rounds. And, and right away we came up and said, well, so you want us to put like permanent plugs in a shotgun? Because that's how they're built. That's not, that you can't change how those weapons are manufactured. So, but, they didn't even care enough to actually call or, even give you a call and say, is this a reasonable thing to do or not? And then, in addition to that, there was 30-some of us standing down there, and we had, a Democratic Senator, Edie Hudick, who actually stood up and walked out when over 30 elected sheriffs were getting ready to testify on these issues and just didn't even care to listen to what any of us had to say.
Well, that was really going to be my next question. Do you feel this is totally falling on deaf ears? I feel the same way about just about everything that comes out of Washington. Nobody wanted Obamacare. Nobody wants this illegal immigration to be, everybody to be made legal, although John McCain seems to feel otherwise. You wonder who they're talking to. It's chaos. The bottom line is it creates chaos. Nobody knows how to really handle things from a law enforcement standpoint, from a civilian standpoint, and then you have lawmakers like what you just mentioned that are so arrogant they don't even want to hear the other side of the story.
Sure, and like you guys were talking about before the break, when it comes down to what this administration has done is, if you're Hispanic, they're telling you, we're gonna protect you, and we're gonna change immigration laws, and so you can count on us for that. And if you're a woman, they're gonna say, we'll make sure that we protect you and protect your body and protect your rights. So you can count on us for that. And if you're black, we're gonna really focus on Trayvon Martin and make sure that that's front and center the whole time. So just as long as we're really focusing on the government taking care of us, don't worry about the rest of this, and pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
I say that all the time. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. And I guess some people don't even know The Wizard of Oz because they weren't around for it, but I wish they would check it out. That movie was really prophetic when you think about it. What I wanted to ask you is when we were talking to you earlier, a couple days ago, when we were trying to just kind of do a pre-interview type thing, you mentioned with the legalization of marijuana, it's actually through loopholes helping dope dealers in a way, isn't it then?
I can speak to what we deal with and what my deputies deal with, and that is, I guess, first of all, let me back up. I'll say that if someone has a debilitating disease and that's what gets them through the day, and they're stuck in their house or wherever they are, and and that's the only thing that can provide any sort of pain relief, I don't think you're going to find a lot of sheriffs around the state that have an objection to that, but that's simply not what we see. We just on a day-to-day basis we don't see that, and actually I don't know that in my county, at least, I don't know that I've ever seen that. I mean, what we see is 20-something-year-olds that legally have a way to not only deal but use, and I'm sure that wasn't the intention of the law, although that the state legislatures certainly didn't try hard enough to put the regulations in place to make sure that didn't happen.
So there's a certain amount of growing that is allowed, and you have to overlook that? Well,
so and it's changed, and it constantly changed through this whole process. For the last couple of years, this has been going on, and the state never really caught up. There's supposed to be a registry, and you were supposed to be able to check and see if someone had a medical card, and that was something that was way far behind. They had no idea that everybody out there that had a hangnail or their knee hurt a little bit would be going for a card, or maybe they should have known that. I don't know, but so what happens now is it's come to this point, and I won't bore you with how it used to be, but at this point, it pretty much comes down to in January 2014, we expect to see retail stores opened, where you can buy, and I think they're going to allow you to buy a quarter ounce at these retail stores if you're over 21.
It blows my mind. Just blows my mind.
You can grow, if you're an adult, if you're over 21, you can grow 6 plants, 3 mature, 3 immature. But there's never been any discussion about what those plants can produce. I mean, some of these guys with hydroponics, I mean, they're pretty good gardeners, and they grow a significant amount of weed in this process. So it's not like it's a specific weight of marijuana. This is like you can have 6 adult plants, and some of those some of the grows that we've taken down, I mean, you're talking about buds that are, they're bigger than a corn stalk, bigger than a piece of corn. I mean, this is a tremendous amount of marijuana. Then also you're allowed to possess up to an ounce now, and some of the cute things in this is you're allowed to give someone else an ounce if they're over 21, but you can't get paid for it, but you can, just give a friend an ounce. And I think the big thing is you can't smoke in public. You need to do it,
you always hear it's not like drinking, it's not like smoking, but it is. It certainly impairs you. I mean, I don't know statistics, but I'm sure it plays a role in car accidents, probably similarly to drunk driving, no?
Oh, absolutely. And, and we're really interested to see, after the next year or two, what the stats are as far as, DUIDs, driving under the influence of drugs, what those stats look like, because, we're already seeing a huge uptick in those things. And, we've worked so hard and so long, and, and DUI accidents have historically gone down over the years, and people realize that they shouldn't be driving while they're drinking, and, people are responsible in that, and they don't do it. But, this just adds a whole new dimension to it and says, but you can go, smoke a couple, joints at home and, head to the store.
What do you think about Fast and Furious, with what's going on with that?
I'm responsible for every single thing that happens in this office, whatever my deputies do. So, regardless of where they're at, what time of day or night it is, it stops with me. So that responsibility doesn't fall back on the people that are truly at the head of those organizations is just beyond me.
Yeah. Now, are you getting any kind of political heat at all for this video, or any kind of reaction from your fellow sheriffs and other law enforcement officers?
Of the, like I said, there's 55 of us that have joined the lawsuit against the governor, claiming that these bills are unconstitutional. And, the 55 of us are, we're in it, we're on the same page, and, and it's our job, that's our oath, is to protect the constitutional rights, of our citizens. And so they're all with it. I mean, the video was interesting. I had a couple of marriage proposals and a couple of death threats.
Jeez. I guess you're not doing anything if you don't get some sort of threat.
Well, I've been told that the marriage proposals are the same thing as a death threat, so I don't know.
There's some that might agree on that.
Yeah, it could be possible.
It's funny, we were talking earlier, we always say it's a free country. It really scares me because it really isn't. Now, your little section of Colorado is rather small. You have a 23,000 some odd people and 1,800 plus square miles.
Well, that's not exactly small right there.
No, the mileage isn't, but the miles isn't, but 23,000 residents is smaller than most municipalities. I mean, coming from the Northeast as I do, 30, 40,000.
Well, you had 23,000 on your block.
Yeah, that's true. But is it easier to police that situation? You have more like-minded people. You have a lot of people who are just trying to go to work, pay their taxes, do the right thing. And are you getting any feedback from them?
Yeah, I've gotten tremendous support from them. And the interesting thing is people out here, they understand that they have a responsibility to protect themselves. And when you're talking about 1,800 square miles, response times are not like where you were talking about where you grew up, Donna. It's not like, there's a cop every 3 blocks or something like that. I mean, you're talking about extended response times, and, people have that responsibility to protect themselves, and they understand that. And, that's one of the things we talked about at the legislature, and that was that, I asked them, I said, how can we stand here in downtown Denver, and you're going to tell me that you have this incredibly high rate of violence, and you have this low rate of gun ownership, yet in my county, I have a very high rate of gun ownership, and I have a very low rate of violence. I can't imagine that that's just a, anomaly.
Yeah, but what kind of response did you get out of a comment like that to, politicians? I mean, they had to have sent back some kind of a ridiculous response.
Most of the responses down there were absolutely nothing. Just kind of look at you and go on about their business. And like I said, quite a few of them, we had some of them that just stood up and walked out and didn't even, which I find absolutely unacceptable. I mean, if you're elected by we the people to represent, your district, then you owe it to absolutely every single person that you represent to sit and listen to both sides. I mean, I think it's akin to, can you imagine in a murder trial if, the prosecution starts and then as soon as the defense starts, that, all the jurors get up and walk out.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a point I want to make about what you just said. How many sheriffs were standing in front of these politicians?
That day there was in the 30s.
Okay. So you got 30-plus citizens, because that's what you guys are.
Correct.
That had elected these people. So they worked for you. And I think that we also need to make sure that everybody understands that you are elected. You're not appointed. And
correct.
So you don't have to answer to the politicians. You have to answer as a sheriff to your constituents.
Sure.
Correct?
And that's really the benefit of being a sheriff, as far as I see it, is that my boss is the people I work for, the citizens. I don't answer to county commissioners or town boards or a mayor or anything else like that. I answer directly to the citizens.
What is the response? And I know the answer to this, and I don't think we even asked this the other night when we talked to you. What is the response that you've gotten from the 23,000 people that elected you?
It's been overwhelming. They're full on behind me, and not only that, I'd say they're in front of me. These are people that. Well,
they're armed, so that's good.
Yeah, it is good. Well, and I've had those conversations with guys too, and you get a group of cowboys out here that go, if it goes bad, we'll be there standing in front of you.
Well, Don wears a cowboy hat and he carries a gun. And we go in, he's got his permit and everything, and we go into stores, and it shows, he doesn't conceal it. We'll have people come up to him and say, please leave, or it's okay. Yeah. Some people, most places down here actually won't say much of anything, but we were at a store that actually sells firearms, a sporting goods store, that told him to leave the other day, to which I say...
That would be Dick's sporting goods store.
As opposed
now,
to
they
Wieners.
don't sell firearms. I mean, they sell shotguns and stuff like that, I think. But I do want to make an announcement on behalf of Dick's that they asked me to take my firearm out of the store.
Well, the thing is, in my opinion, Shayne, and you had even said this, if that's the case, you're a sitting duck. So how are we protected if we go in there? And I believe that was the case in the Colorado movie theater. They actually had a number of movie theaters in that area that posted, or I should say the one that he went into posted a sign that said no firearms allowed. And that was the one the shooter chose to go into.
Sure. Well, a gun-free zone isn't going to impact anybody that's, is there to do harm. It's just going to impact those people that, are law-abiding citizens, and they see it as a gun-free zone, and they say, oh, that's fine, and and I respect that, and so, they don't carry there. But if someone's there to do harm to other people, it's they don't just stop at the sign and go, oh, there's a sign. That's too bad. I guess I can't go. Carry out
it's bizarre to even think
I need to go into a
politicians...
theater that I can take my AR-15 into.
But then again, you're not protected if you go in there because you're not walking through any kind of detector.
No, and that's how we look at it. Even I guess a good example for that would be in our own courts is, when you come to court in the facility that we run, and and my statutory responsibility is to provide safety and security for the courts here. There's deputies there, and there's a magnetometer that you have to walk through, and and we make people take everything out of their pockets, and if they have something, a knife or something like that, take it back to your car, but what we're doing is we're making sure that no one in the entire facility has a weapon, but then we're taking on the responsibility of protecting you. So, then we have deputies that are armed in the courtrooms, and and they're there to take care of anything that happens.
Well, see, at that point, the people who were unarmed are protected. I actually start to feel a little funny when I don't go around with it at this point, because I start to think crime is up. People are starting to get desperate. The economy is not good. First thing's going to happen is crime is going to start to skyrocket. I believe it already has started in many areas, especially in the inner city.
Sure.
You had a real good comeback, and I hope you can remember what it is because you delivered it well the other night to me, that I can use when I go into a facility. And I respect the fact if somebody doesn't want to have me carrying a weapon in there, I respect that. And then I can make the decision, well, do I want to patronize this company or this store or this restaurant, or do I not want to? And that's a freedom that I have. But you had to come back to like a movie theater guy if they say, hey, you can't come in here with a weapon. Do you remember what it was?
I don't.
It was something like, well, I tell you what, I will leave my weapon in the car if you will ensure my safety.
Yeah. Sure. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about. If you're gonna promise me that no one else in this theater has a weapon either, or if no one else, and wherever you're going, whether it's a courtroom or anywhere else, then I'm good with that. And
again, because you're not going through a metal detector, there's just a sign there. You're sitting duck, and that's exactly what happened in the theater shooting. It's exactly what happened in Sandy Hook, and yet the public opinion, because of the mainstream media, which I'm so critical of, is swayed to think, oh, you have a gun, you're going to shoot somebody. It's quite the opposite. The people who... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Maybe you guys have to help me about what actually the numbers were over the weekend, if you know. But I heard something to the effect that over the weekend in Chicago, there was something like eight murders with gunfire and like 17 injuries. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, somewhere around that. And most of it's black-on-black crime. And there were dozens of people murdered, if not hundreds, in the year or so since the Trayvon Martin situation.
I believe the number was actually 54.
This
since
weekend?
the Trayvon Martin, yeah.
No, there's more. I'm talking about for the past year. Trayvon was shot over a year ago.
No, I'm talking about since he went to trial.
Oh, since the trial, yeah. I believe that too. And the thing is, here in Georgia, there was a crime with a guy who attacked a woman, tried to rob her. She didn't have any money, and he got mad, and he shot her 14-month-old son right in the head, killed him. Yeah. We had a jewelry store owner, a smash and grab in broad daylight, 6 thugs, and shot the jewelry store owner dead. That shooter was 16 years old. Both of those were black on white crime. Well, the little boy was a white Hispanic, quite frankly. I don't know if that had anything to do with Trayvon because it was a few months ago. But and it's the point is the vast majority of crimes that really occur, though, 73%. From what I had heard, or more, is black on black crime. In Chicago, I'm sure it's higher. And the stand your ground law, which I knew nothing about before, I'm hearing now, was used more by black defendants to try to have more rights. And they're trying to take that away.
Well, and one of the things that I think that no one ever talked about, is at least while we were going through this process, with, down at the State House, is that the FBI stats, when you talk about deaths associated with like bludgeoning instruments, are much higher than gunfire incidents. And I've yet to see us say, well, we better start hitting the sporting goods shops and making sure there aren't any bats or clubs or anything else around, and which would really make more sense because stats show that there's a whole lot more deaths associated with those kind of instruments than there are firearms.
Well, we had a gentleman that was middle-aged that was killed on the street in front of my office, and oh
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he was beaten in the head while he was driving his vehicle at 35-40 miles an hour by a guy in the back seat using a framing hammer about 15 to 20 times, and he finally came to a stop right in front of our facility. This was 3:00 in the afternoon, Sheriff.
In Atlanta, downtown Atlanta.
Yeah, in metro Atlanta. And then he shot the guy twice, walked out of the van, and jumped into a chase car.
A getaway car that was sitting there, and a Good Samaritan had stopped, and when the getaway car, which he didn't realize was the getaway car, had also stopped in front of this van, he yelled to the guy, call 911. The guys in the car go, oh, yeah, we just did. And little did he know that he was talking to, people who were part of the crime. Supposedly it was a robbery, but that was in broad daylight.
I want to ask you a question, Sheriff, regarding this, because I've not really spoken to law enforcement about a question that I've been asked numerous times since that particular incident took place. And that is that, everybody around my company knows that I carry a firearm. Well, that evening, as I was leaving, the Atlanta Police Department was there, and they were finishing up their, homicide investigation at that point. And two of the cops came up to me and they said they saw, and for that day I was actually wearing a shoulder holster, and they said, "Where are all the good guys when we need them?" And I said, "Well, I was in my office. I just came out here to take care of something I needed to take care of. Got here about 3 or 4 minutes after the vehicle came to a stop. I mean, police hadn't even arrived at that point. And the owner of our company comes running up to me and goes, 'Oh, my God, this guy's been beaten the head with a hammer,' and blah, 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 blah." My answer was, I have no idea what I would have done. I sure as hell would not have just instantly pulled out my weapon. And, you know, there are so many factors involved in a situation like that. First of all, if I'm looking into the van, I'm seeing two people that are in some type of an altercation. I have no idea who's right, who's wrong, if both are wrong. Then I see a guy get out of the van. I don't know whether he's the victim or the perp. I see him get into a car. I've got 2 lanes of traffic in front of me before that. I can't open up and start shooting. I wouldn't. And so my answer is, you know what? I probably wouldn't have been able to do anything. Now, my question is, and I know that you're not a lawyer. I'm assuming you're not a lawyer. So I'm not asking for any type of legal advice, but from a law enforcement standpoint, when I've got APD saying, "Where are the good guys when we need them?" I don't know what my response should have been. The good guy was walking out, taking care of what he does every day, and he sees a tragedy happen in front of him, and he's happened to carry a gun. He's not going to pull it out and start unloading rounds trying to be a hero.
Yeah, and I'm not a lawyer, so I can't answer that. I can't answer it that way.
But you did stay in a Holiday Inn Express last night.
Yeah, I did. And actually, it's illegal for me to give legal advice, so I'm not doing that. But I would say that criminals, by and large, are cowards. And it's easy prey. And evil triumphs when good men do nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just speaking from my jurisdiction, I mean, we will have citizens that stop when we're in an altercation on the side of the road, and it's amazing how fast things start toning back down when you get a couple boys jump out of a truck and say, no, you're not doing that to, you're not doing that to one of our deputies, you're not doing that to, one of our citizens, and so we certainly have those people that are willing to stand up and do.
Well, there's a clear-cut situation, though. Whereas with what we had in front of us is, 2 civilians, you don't know what was what.
Sure.
But then, now look at Trayvon Martin. Now, and George Zimmerman didn't pull out his gun. It wasn't like he was stalking around the neighborhood with his gun drawn. He didn't pull that out until he thought his life was threatened. And look at what he's going through and what he will go through for the rest of his life. Now, obviously, this is sensationalism, and there's thousands of crimes that have probably happened since that, but it makes you think twice about possibly pulling out your gun, and if you hesitate, you could be killed.
Well, yeah, you're right. And what was the verdict in that trial?
Well, yeah, it should have never gone to trial.
You talking about the Trayvon Martin trial?
Yeah. And do we...
This is a Cowboy Logic alert. Yes, George Zimmerman has been found not guilty.
Now, do you guys have stand your ground?
It's not called that, but we absolutely do.
What exactly is that? Can you explain it?
What the rule is, you can if you can articulate a fear for your health, safety, your life, or the life of someone else, you can protect yourself with deadly force.
Well, and see, that's the thing. From what I gather, and Eric Holder and company are trying to get rid of that now, the majority of people who use that and are able to defend themselves are blacks and other minorities in the inner city, because a lot of times that's your first line of defense. And crime is so rampant in some of these inner cities, you want that. So they're doing more things to create more chaos. This is just my opinion. I know as a sheriff you can't say that. But to me, it's creating more chaos, and that really is the grand design. Right now, you've got...
You guys already talked about it earlier, right? To overload the welfare system?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Cloward Piven.
Increase regulations on honest people, decrease it on dishonest people. Oh, it's funny that you mentioned that, too. I didn't mention this before, but I want to give it a quickie here. and get your response. I bet you see this in the inner cities too in Colorado, Sheriff. New York City grocery stores are actually selling large shipping barrels so non-perishable items can be sent back to their homeland. So what they do is they buy food here with the EBT cards and the food stamps, which is on, just unbelievably exploding in as far as usage since this president has been in office. And they're sending them back home. They're not, used to feed the people here in the United States. And that's another business in and of itself to send non-perishable items bought with EBT cards, back from the United States to these people's countries that are here illegally.
But they can't send 32-ounce sodas, right?
No, can't do that.
No.
Could probably send some marijuana now, can't they?
Marijuana.
From Colorado.
Big of a soda, yeah, it's fine.
I'd like to ask you a question that anybody that carries a firearm may or may not know the answer to. As we've said, I always carry one unless I go into a facility that I choose won't allow me to. So I've got it when I'm driving. Now, for whatever reason, for the past, when's the last time I got a ticket?
I don't know.
5 or 6 years ago,
Oh,
maybe?
you rolled through a stop sign.
I did.
Which now has had rumble strips put on
Yeah.
it since, because everybody rolls through
Those
that
are
damn
my
stop
rumble
sign.
strips, damn it. Anyhow, I haven't been pulled over in a long time, and so I have yet to be pulled over while I have my weapon on me. Now, if you pull me over and come up to my side window, and I've got this gun in a holster on me, what should I do so that you don't completely freak out and shoot me through the other side of the car?
I don't know what the laws are there, but here we see it all the time. And typically, what people either say something, they'll say, "Here's my license. I have a CCW," or some people actually hand us both. They'll hand the deputies both their driver's license and their concealed carry permit.
That's a good idea.
But I should let you know immediately before I say, hello, officer. I should let you know that I've got a gun on me.
There's some different schools of thought there, and it really goes back and forth depending on where you're at. It really does. We don't like surprises. I mean, the last thing you want to do, and we've had people do this, especially that move here from out of state, is you pull them over and they'd say, "Oh, I've got a concealed weapon," and they're going to get it out of the glove box or out of the console. We don't want to see your gun because we have one too, and when you turn back around at the window, ours will probably be out before yours will.
Yeah, because truthfully, that's what I would think to do. I have a gun. Here it is. I have a gun. Don't
I
go
actually
for it.
think probably what I'd do is I'd leave my hands on my steering wheel and go,
leave your hands on the steering wheel, and and you can tell the deputy or officer, I have a concealed carry permit, and I have a weapon on me, and at least out
How
here,
would you like to proceed?
Yeah.
Yep.
Just mentioning this brings to mind something that happened to me when I was working in New York at Fox 5, the local Fox affiliate, before I went to the Fox News Channel. We were in the van. We were on the Cross Bronx Expressway heading actually just toward the George Washington Bridge. And we're on the service road, which runs parallel to the Cross Bronx. And it was bumper-to-bumper traffic. I mean, absolutely bumper-to-bumper traffic. And this cop tried to pull over some guy who obviously had no idea he was there. He was a guy, I'd say, in his maybe mid-50s. And for like 2 or 3 blocks, and it was, again, bumper to bumper, and there were tons of lights, and it was stop-and-go traffic, and this cop was trying to pull this guy over. And he, for like a couple miles, never saw the cop in his rearview mirror. So here we are in the news van right next to this guy, and the flashing lights to our right behind us. We were in the left lane. He was in the right lane. And finally, the guy sees the cop. There's no place to pull over, so he basically just stops. And we're at a stoplight right next to him. And at this point, you can tell the cop's pretty pissed that this guy hasn't stopped. So he and his female partner get out. The male cop goes to the driver's side. The female cop stays to the back on the right, and they both have their hands on the handle of their guns. They didn't draw them, but they have their hands on the handle of the guns. And my driver of my news van is going, oh my God, we're going to get in the middle of a shootout here. And there's no place we can go. We're in the van. We're right next to this car. If this guy has a gun, we're in trouble because he's going to point it at the cops. And, of course, he didn't. And he got out of the car. He said, we could hear him say he didn't see him. And then they relaxed. And, she came back out and everything was cool. Well, I'm not done yet, honey. He wanted to say something, and I'm cutting him off, as usual.
She's Italian.
Because
Shayne.
I'm Italian, and I'm talking with my hands. So fast forward, I get back to the office, and I'm telling my producers what happened. And obviously, most, and I'll go right out and say it, all New York City radio stations and television stations are overwhelmingly liberal. And they really do have a thing against police officers and law enforcement in general. Well, my producer, who was a black guy, said to me, you know what? A couple of months ago, I would have said, oh, these guys are overzealous. They didn't need to be pulling this guy over. It was bumper-to-bumper traffic. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He goes, but we just got back from taking that police, I guess it's one of those things where you have blanks, but they have, what is it, target practice, where the guys hop out and you have to shoot the good guys or the bad guys and make sure you don't shoot any innocent civilians and that kind of thing. And you have a split second to react. And he said, I killed everybody. I killed all the civilians. I killed all the cops. I killed all the good guys. I killed all the bad guys. He goes, so now I am seeing from the perspective of the police officer what's going on. And I thought to myself, most reporters should go through something like that. So they really see, especially if they're covering the cops on the beat, what's going on. Because I can't tell you how many murder scenes and fires and arsons and people jumping out of windows that I've covered through the years. And you really don't understand the law enforcement angle of it all until you talk to these cops.
Well, a lot of people don't understand either that, a traffic stop is the most dangerous thing a cop does. It's true unknown. They're going up on a car. They have no idea whether, what just happened before you stop that individual. I mean, even going to a shots fired call, you know what you're going into. You know that someone has a gun and they've already shot it a couple times, and you understand that. But, a traffic stop is the most unknown thing that any police officer, deputy, anybody does. So, tensions are high on a lot of traffic stops.
Well, we've lost a lot of law enforcement on Interstate 20 west, I'm sure all over the state, but I travel 20 quite a bit. And west of Atlanta, you see them pulling over people all the time out there. And every time I go by, I watch in my rearview mirror to make sure there's not a problem.
They appreciate that more than you know.
Yeah.
Well, Joanne Chesimard, wherever the heck she is, didn't she escape to Cuba? She shot a state trooper on the New Jersey Turnpike some 30 years ago. I'm dating myself.
Well, you see this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I want to read something. Throughout the show, I get text messages from various people that are listening to the show, and I want to read kind of a addendum to the story that I was talking about a minute ago where the guy was killed in front of our facility. And just kind of hits home when I read this. The gentleman that I work with, Danny Hamilton, sent this to me. By the way, he just had knee surgery today. And so he's probably met it up pretty good, but he's listening, which I am grateful for. This is what he said. This gentleman that was killed in front of our property, he worked in the area for 28 years. He was cashing a payroll check for $2,700 to pay his employees with. The car tag in the getaway car was covered with a white cloth. It
was premeditated.
Oh, yeah, there were
obviously
3 guys involved in this thing. He was 57 years old. He had 2 daughters and a wife that he left behind. No one's been arrested at this point, and they did get away with the $2,700. Danny says that if he'd had a gun, he'd have fired it.
Lost a father and a husband for $2,700. It's tragic.
It's pathetic.
So that's the other thing you don't talk about. That's never discussed. Is there's a lot of victims. Black, white, everything,
White Hispanic?
White Hispanic, yeah. But there's families, there's loved ones that are affected forever that have to live on. And in many cases, these people are the breadwinner. And then what happens?
Sure. Well, Amanda Collins, have you ever heard of, who she is?
No.
Amanda Collins was brutally raped on a college campus, and she actually testified.
Was this in Colorado?
Months back. No, I think the rape actually took place in Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
But she actually testified, and we had to follow her, which was a really hard act to follow, because, just the courage that young lady had to get up there and retell her story, not that she probably doesn't, live the tragedy all the time, but for her to get up there and look at the face of those representatives, those senators, and say, what makes you think that you have the right to tell me how I can and can't protect myself, because you weren't there. And, and we had a liberal Democrat say, well, sweetie, and very condescending the way she said it to her. She's like, sweetie, if really the odds aren't against you, even if you would have been armed. And that's a mentality.
Oh, I remember hearing that.
Yeah, I remember hearing that too. You hate to wish harm on somebody, but they always say a liberal is somebody who hasn't been mugged. Did you ever hear that? Besides what Winston Churchill says, which is if you're a liberal in your 20s, you have a heart. If you're a liberal in your 40s, you have no brain, something along that line. But, this hindsight's 2020. Look at George Zimmerman. Again, I'm not saying this guy is, an angel. He's not. He did have kind of a testosterone complex, I guess. But, there had been a ton of burglaries in the area. He was the local, neighborhood watch guy. He was legally carrying a gun, and he did not pull it out until his head was getting pushed into the cement, MMA style. He's being bludgeoned. And, you say bludgeoning is one of the worst thing, or more common than shooting. This guy was doing it with his hands.
And, at what point do you draw that line? You have to be able to protect yourself. And not only that, you have a responsibility to protect yourself.
Well, and I think clearly that the jury found that's exactly what he was doing. That doesn't take away from the fact that my heart bleeds for the Martin family, the parents. I can't imagine losing a kid.
No.
I can't even – I don't get that.
But the thing is, there are so many other really heinous crimes that happened that should have been highlighted by the Sharptons and, quite frankly, the Obamas. Because this was a clear case of a guy trying to defend himself. He was not looking for a fight, and it was not racial in any way, shape, or form. And if you'll notice, the Justice Department was saying, we're going to pursue, civil rights charges against him. That dropped almost immediately. Exactly. Sure. Because there wasn't. The guy tried, very much to help blacks and other minorities in his neighborhood. He himself, I believe, I don't know if he had a black parent or a black grandparent. He took a black woman to the prom. He worked with underprivileged minorities in his neighborhood.
Yeah, that whole civil rights thing would have been shot down and quite frankly would have been a huge embarrassment.
But see, none of that got talked about by the mainstream media. They got caught in a lie.
The mainstream media, mm-hmm. When the mainstream media is made up of what? And what is Al Sharpton's new position?
Yeah, he's at MSNBC.
NBC, what? It was like $2.1 million in back taxes to the IRS,
and Tawana Brawley, the whole 9 yards. Again, when I was in New York City, when I worked weekends, Sharpton would always have press conferences. So it was like, oh gosh, he gave us something to talk about. That's how he made his name. He made himself available to the press, and they loved it. Gave him something to do, and made the lazy producers not have to work.
I want to change total direction here on you, and I'm going to take you someplace that we didn't talk about the other night, and I don't think we talked about this. I want to get your take on Homeland Security and the fact that they have purchased 1.6 billion rounds, 9mm, 40 cal, 45 cal, hollow points, enough for 5 bullets for every man, woman, child in the United States. We've been talking about it a long time. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on the Department of Homeland Security from a law enforcement standpoint? I'm just going to be quiet and let you roll with it.
Well, I have close friends that work for those agencies, and they don't know what to make of it. And we've had some very kind of candid conversations about what's going on and why are we buying MRAPs and why are we buying all this ammunition for Homeland Security when to wage war against who? Homeland Security going to leave the United States and go somewhere else to protect our interests, which is, we all know the answer is no. So exactly what kind of civil unrest are they seeing that they need to bump up their stores like this? And even the guys that work in those agencies, and I've got some friends that are pretty high level there, they're dumbfounded. They have no idea why they're doing it, what they're and it just bears a comment. You ask them, you're like, well, why else could they be doing it? And I'm not I think I told this to you the other night. I'm not the I'm not the guy that thinks that well, everything's not what it seems, and that there's a big controversy to everything. But the more and more that this goes on, it sure is hard to not believe that there's got to be something else there, because no one's given us a reason why they're doing that. It's impacted law enforcement. I'll tell you that, what they've done with the rounds. Nationwide, it's impacted all of us because it's very difficult to get ammunition, even for law enforcement.
Well, and clearly no one in law enforcement or the military uses hollow point rounds for target practice, and that's what the answer was from the DHS for the, are you buying these for target practice? When's the last time you went target practicing with hollow point bullets?
We actually do.
Oh, yeah.
I have been made look like a fool.
Yeah, but no,
we
most
use
of
the
the
same
cops
kind
who
of
talked
rounds
to said no.
for practice that we do for duty.
Do what now?
We use the same rounds for practice as we do for duty.
You have hollow points?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Well, they use them on duty. Why do you use them for target practice?
Consistency.
Yeah, you got a point there.
Yeah, but still, you don't need 5 for every man, woman, and child in this country. There are rumors that concentration camp type compounds are being built. You got to wonder.
You're
you really
a conspiracy
gotta
nut.
well, you know what? 5 years ago, I would have said, yeah, I'm an idiot and I'm a conspiracy theorist. But you know what? None of this has been proven wrong. That's what's so scary.
The ammunition's one thing, but I think the assault vehicles are...
Yeah. And they were all moving west, were they not?
Those MRAPs are... have you seen those? Those are some incredible pieces of war machinery is what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and drones can be used against citizens. At first, it was only overseas. Well, they're killing American citizens overseas, too.
You got any idea the repercussion that I am going to receive from liberals after you said you use hollow points for target practice?
Well, it depends on who it is. It depends on the agency. It depends on, how you buy them, and, it really does. If you're talking about a really large agency, we probably wouldn't do it. With the number of deputies I have and how we work things out, and, if they can get a better deal, honestly, a lot of that will come down to, a financial piece on our side. So it's not that it's a bad argument by any means. It's really not. It's just, for us, that's something that...
And also, out in that section of, at least from an aerial view, looks like complete wilderness in
rural
Colorado.
Area.
You guys target practice criminals, right?
Stop. Let me just
See, that's politically incorrect.
Yeah.
I want to bring up one more thing about the Department of Homeland Security. About 2 months ago, I did a little research and found a document that was from the Department of Homeland Security requesting from vendors pricing on bagpipes, bagpipe reeds, DVDs on how to clean bagpipes, straps, cases, spats to go on boots, slings to hold the bagpipes, field drums, snare drums, drumsticks, tons of it. And the whole thing vanished about 3 or 4 days after I saw that. They retracted
Sounds like funerals.
the request. That's exactly what I thought.
Of. Mass funerals.
Why is the Department of Homeland Security buying bagpipes?
Yeah, I couldn't even come close to giving you a guess on that one.
What a joke. This country is going to hell in a handbasket, and we're wasting money. I want to just ID who you are there, Shayne, because it's been close to an hour here, and people are wondering who we're talking to. Elbert County Sheriff Shayne Heap, who has a video, which we played the audio sound of it earlier, basically telling President Obama to, try to, I guess, how could you say it, shape up?
Butt out.
And it's gone viral. Over 700,000 views on the two various videos that you have. One thing that you did say in that video, Shayne, is Obama essentially is carpet bombing our rights.
Absolutely. And that's what we saw here. And, I've already hit on those points, so I don't want to be redundant about it. But, there's no doubt that Colorado's a beachhead, and that's what the liberal left wanted. If they could do it here, they can do it anywhere. And, I absolutely agree with that. If they can come out and push these incredibly, far left, and, and I guess I'll digress just a minute. One of the things that I've seen, from that video is some of the responses are, people say things like, the Constitution's an old document and it needs to be more revised for our modern thinking, which, absolutely makes me sick. And, your guest last week, I would hate to even have them hear something like that because that's just a horrific thing to say. But, there's no doubt that this was Bloomberg money. His bus was here last week. And this is D.C. politics. This isn't state level politics.
No, and it's Chicago style politics too. And what I feel, and I don't know why some of the right haven't pushed for this, we really need to audit where all this tax money is going, because I feel now on a national level we have Chicago style politics and virtually a bottomless pocketbook, really. To push that agenda. And that really does scare me. I'm sure a ton of these people who came out this past weekend for the Trayvon Martin protests were paid for and were, bussed out there. And that happens on so many of these demonstrations, while the other people who are paying the taxes and putting their nose to the grindstone, trying to raise their families, are basically getting smacked down. And I find it at this point reprehensible. I wanted to also ask you something about, I have written down here and I don't have any notes about it, Uncle Sam's Misguided Children.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting Facebook site. It's actually, they're Marines, USMC.
Okay.
Uncle Sam's Misguided Children. And they picked up that video pretty quick, and, I got a lot of feedback from those guys. And they're the heroes that are protecting our very rights and our very freedoms in this country. So that was humbling to have them do that.
Oh, so that's a Facebook site?
Yeah. No, it's a website, isn't it?
It's they might have a website too, but I got picked up by their Facebook site.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the whole thing. We're all in this together. The Marines, all the branches of government and military and law enforcement here and abroad are basically trying to protect Americans. And it seems like this administration, and to a lesser extent, but they're willing allies, both the Senate and the Congress, because let's face it, all they want to do is stay in power. I can say this. I know you're a sheriff, so you really can't, but I'm going to say it. He's
elected. He can say that.
Well, that's true. But the point is, they have an agenda. They want to stay in power. They're there to protect their collective backsides now, and it's just gotten out of hand. And that really is the beauty of our Constitution, because our founding fathers realized what happens with human nature after, through society, might take a couple hundred years. We're on overtime right now, 230 some odd years, and no republic has ever lasted longer than that because of the corruptness. And I always thought, Shayne, that perhaps the internet would really save that from happening. And it amazes me how many low information voters there are out there, despite the fact that all this information is right at their fingertips. But you don't really see that so much in your area of Colorado. It's more toward the cities, correct?
Oh, I don't know. I think that this was a great fight for them to take on, especially here in Colorado. A Second Amendment issue is because what they're doing is, they're not targeting the suburban housewives, and they keep coming back and saying, well, why does anybody need a 30-round magazine? and and so much so, and they pushed it, and their media machine is incredible. What they do is unreal, but they pushed it in such a way that if we were talking about the right to free speech, would we even having this conversation? I mean, wouldn't everybody have gotten involved at that point? And that kind of lack of involvement by people really comes back, because it's specifically guns, but it's just a slow degradation of our rights. There's no doubt that it's we're just going to take this one, and it's a slippery slope. We'll take the next one, and and then that comes back to how's it go when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for people to dissolve the political bands that have connected them. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
I asked General Vallely last week a question that for him to answer was not difficult, because he's extremely outspoken, he's extremely firm on his positions, and he's not real worried about what anybody thinks that he has to say, which I admire greatly. And I want to put you on the spot with the same question. If you're not comfortable answering it, just tell me you're not comfortable answering it. If there was a revolt, if there was a huge uprising in this country against the government, my question to him was, what position do you think the military would take? My question to you is, what do you think the different branches of law enforcement would take? Would they take the side of the citizens, or would they take the side of the government?
Well, I'll tell you without doubt, in my county, they take the side of the citizens. And
well, I didn't doubt that.
I won't speak for the other 55 of the 64 Colorado sheriffs that are in on this. And sheriffs all over the country that are doing the exact same thing, but I would venture to say that their answer would be the exact same.
Yeah, I really feel that's the case too. But it all really does boil down to the fact, if you look at history, that once gun rights are taken away, then you're basically a sitting duck. And that really is scary, because you have more and more people who live in the inner cities that think they don't need anything like that, and it's just outdated, it's for hunting, and it's turning into a democracy, this country, more mob rule, which is what democracy is, as opposed to republic. And that also scares me a lot, because the rule of law is being thrown under the bus. And
there was a couple, I got comments from people that wanted to know who, the other sheriffs, out of the 64, like I said, there's 55, and they want to know who the other ones that didn't jump on board, and and called them some colorful names and stuff like that. And my response to that was, these are guys that that I've spent a lot of the many years with, and and I respect these guys, and and just as they have a right to stand up for their citizens and their beliefs, I have most certainly a right to stand up for what my citizens feel and what they want to see done. And but that's not what we're seeing as a state. It's just this is what the urban areas want, so everybody's going to do it. Marijuana got voted down huge in rural counties in Colorado. Gun control got voted down huge in rural counties in Colorado. So it's it's the urban cities that are running it. When and you're right, it's the population. But if you look at the mileage, there's far more out here that say no, I'm not going to have it.
Well, even California, Prop 8 voted down big time gay marriage. And so they fought it in court and got their way that way. I got to hand it to the left. They're very organized, and they just fight until they get what they want. And then for some reason, the right never fights back. But then again, I'm sorry, go ahead.
When the left gets in power, they shove it straight down your throat like they've done in these situations. And then historically, at least in Colorado, when the right gets empowered, we try to play nice and reach across the aisle and work things out, and and it's obviously hasn't worked out very well.
What is the split in the legislature there in Colorado? Is it predominantly conservative, or is it predominantly liberal in the House and the Senate there in the state?
It's liberal. The conservatives, they don't have a chance.
Do you think the libs from California are moving in? Because I know a lot of them have houses in Colorado. Is that what's happening?
I've actually had representatives tell me that's what they're seeing in a lot of their districts, and they're seeing West Coast politics come to Colorado.
Yeah, and I think it's going to happen in Texas soon too, which really is bizarre, because people are voting with their feet. They're getting out of California because of high taxation. They're moving to places like Texas and Colorado, where it's a little better, and bringing their stupid brand of politics with them and creating the same situation all over again. It's happening here in Georgia, too.
Yeah, apparently they're not comfortable unless the government has complete control over everything that they do and tells them how long their grass can be and when they can water and, break down to those kind of issues.
Well, they want to force everybody to their way of thinking. It's their way or the highway. And I always say to them, name me one thing the federal government does more efficiently, or any government does more efficiently than the private sector. And they can't answer you. And the public school system, the military. Not so anymore. They're epic failures. And this administration is totally gutting the military, making it even worse, and again, making people like yourself at the local level of law enforcement try to enforce laws when your hands are really tied behind your back, just like they're doing to the military, in my humble opinion.
No, I'd agree with you. It is interesting to see there's a dichotomy between the upper echelon of federal law enforcement and the guys that work the streets. Because although they can't say it for fear of their jobs, but there's a tremendous number of those guys that absolutely disagree with what's going on and really, have backed us in a lot of this.
How about Colorado splitting up? There had been rumors of that. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but it seems like that's happening in many areas.
Well, it's a pretty strong message, isn't it? I mean,
I loved it.
Of how reasonable it is, or what the logistics would be to actually pull it off. But I think it's got to be a pretty strong message to those people sitting down at the Capitol when you say, you know what, we've had so much enough of you that we don't even want to be part of your state anymore.
Yeah, but they probably walked out of that little session too.
Yeah, they probably did.
Hey, have you gotten any repercussion on a federal level for your video?
I haven't. I haven't at all. I think they just hope, anytime anybody makes any noise, I think they hope that, they'll just, if they ignore you long enough, you go away or something like that, which we have no intention of doing.
Good
what
for you.
about Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who is making waves himself and has been for years down in Arizona? I find him very admirable, and I'm sure he's got a target on his back as well. But again, is there a similarity? Do you feel that a kinship almost to him?
I think the brotherhood of the sheriffs is pretty tight, and I think that kinship reaches from the guys that run counties that are so remote that they have 1,000 residents there to someone like Arpaio that 5, 6 jails, and it's an incredibly large organization that he runs. But I don't think it really matters big or small. Sheriffs are different just because we work for the citizens, and my job depends on me standing up and standing with the citizens, and and that's the same thing that Joe does in his jurisdiction, and the same thing that 55 of my other brothers do in this state, and all, actually not 55, I shouldn't say it that way, all 64 of them do it, but they stand up for their citizens, and that does make it unique.
Well, I think that's an important distinction that you brought to my attention the other night, and that is that sheriffs are elected and police commissioners are appointed, right?
Correct. Yeah, police chiefs are appointed, and and I had quite a few chiefs contact me, while we were going through this, and said, we're with you. I can't publicly say it because my job depends on it, because I answer to, the town council or the mayor or whoever that may be, but a lot of the media spun it off that all the chiefs thought one way and all the sheriffs thought a different way, and and that was just a media spin on it, because that nothing could be farther from the truth. Just like not every single sheriff in Colorado is on board with this, but the great majority is. But there's quite a few chiefs too that they wanted nothing to do with this whatsoever, and they got lumped into just going along with the rest of them.
Does your county sheriff's department have a Facebook page? I know you've got yours, but does the county have one?
Actually, yeah, we have. The sheriff's office has one as well.
Do you mind giving that?
It's Elbert County Sheriff. Actually, there's links to everything. If you go to elbertcountysheriff.com, there's links to all the Twitter feeds and Facebook and every piece of social media that we do.
That's ELBERT, County Sheriff. .com. Yeah, I have that up and your video's on there. Again, it's gone viral. We're talking to Elbert County Sheriff Shayne Heap, who has a message that, I must admit, by the way, if you used cue cards, you did a pretty darn good job. You didn't have a teleprompter? But you read that, it was, what, 6 or 7 minutes long, and it was that one take?
Yeah, I tried to do without it a couple times, and I got off on a tangent, and then, didn't cover what I needed to, and then did it again and got off on another tangent and decided to forget.
So did you use a teleprompter?
I actually used an iPad.
An iPad, so there you go. So that's one thing you have in common with Obama. He had to use cue cards.
We wouldn't be able to see it. We'd have to have the font so big that like 4 letters would have taken up the iPad.
Yeah, it's really getting bad.
When's your term up?
I have a year and a half left.
So how long is the term? 4 years?
4 years.
4 years.
So, yeah.
So I think it's safe to say you'll be back.
I am. I'm running again. I've put in my paperwork, and I'll go one more time. In my county, you can only do 2 terms, so after that, I'm done.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, what do you do after that? You going to run for office?
I don't know. I'm going to have to talk to my wife about that one. I think that she deserves to make that call at that point.
Well, I got to...
run for governor.
You got me good on the fact that you target practice with hollow points. I'm going to come back to this, okay?
Well, and you know what? And I'm sitting here thinking about that. I should ask my guys and ask them whether I'm the only one that they let do that, or is it all of you guys, or what? Because watch tomorrow, one of them will be like, you know what? Just so you know, you're the only one that we actually give those rounds to. And everything.
Well, payback is going to be a mother, okay? And here it comes. I want to tell anybody that's listening here to go to your Facebook page. And on your Facebook page, they need to go to the photos. And when they go to the photos, there's 2 pictures that I want them to check out. The first one is where you've parked your sheriff's car. And I had no idea that you drove around in a Little Tykes sheriff car. That's the first thing.
It's got red and blues on it. It's got a really, really good siren.
The second thing is that I knew you were a cowboy, and I knew you knew how to ride a horse. I just didn't know. And the people that will go to your Facebook page will see you riding this horse. I believe you were at a rodeo because I saw a rodeo clown. It's just the horse head with a stick coming out of it.
That's about as much barrel racing as I want to do. So yeah, that's the only thing I do.
Is that what you were doing, barrel racing?
Come on out, I'll stick you on a barrel racer.
It was some sort of a race at one of the local rodeos, and
that and a dunk tank, man. You got to do them, right?
It's a nice horse, Don. I don't know why you're giving me a hard time about that.
Well, it's a beautiful roan. Well, since this is Cowboy Logic Radio, do you want to share with us what you do with livestock and horses and the whole 9 yards?
Oh, we dabble a little bit in cattle. I'm nowhere near a rancher. It's but the kids like it, and yeah, we have a horse, and I think that I'll go ahead and just say it because someone else will tell you. You'll see it on Facebook or something like that. But we actually have a pig that lives in the house.
A potbelly pig?
We got a potbelly pig that sleeps on the couch underneath the chenille throw.
You got to be kidding me! Now can you housebreak those things?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought puppies were bad. They have fleas? They get fleas?
No, they're really clean. You can't eat them because I think they taste like disdain and hatred because they're such foul-mannered little things. But
oh, does this thing have a tood?
Yeah, but it belongs to one of my girls. So
I know. So you got it when it was really little and it was really cute, and it grew into this big fat thing, right?
We knew what was going to happen to it. I just said okay.
Things like that I put in a stall. If it can't go in a stall, I don't have it in the house. That's for sure.
Hey, man, we sure do appreciate you spending so much time with us tonight, and I know that you're talking to us from your office, so you're not with your family and the potbelly pig.
Yeah.
But we really appreciate you coming on. You did this real short notice. Anthony Paris is the guy that turned me on to you on Facebook, and I want to do a tip of the hat to him because he's the one that pasted your link onto our site and said, you have got to get this guy on the show. I called you up. You said yes, and with zero notice, you came on and you spent the evening with us. And I'm greatly appreciative of the fact that that you spent so much time with us. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. You know, God has given me more than I deserve, and it was an honor to spend some time with you tonight. And we can do it anytime.
If there's
one last thought. I run a rock and roll bus company that has about 60 buses.
Not Bloomberg's bus.
No.
He has his own.
But many of them look like Obama's bus. Having said that, we come to Colorado constantly, and we come in on 70 if we're coming from the east, and just remember us when we go through your county.
It'll say Star Coaches on the side of it.
I'm going to text you a name of one of my traffic guys, so when you meet him, you can say, "Oh, you know what? I did. I met that deputy."
I'm going to tell all my guys to drop your name.
There you go. Hey, if there's one thing that I feel might be a little glimmer of hope in all this bastion of liberalness that has crept into our lives the last 5 or 6 years, is that your video has gone viral to some 700,000 people. So what's happening is, in my opinion, I do think I'm right here, is that a lot of people are feeling the way you're feeling about this administration and about the goings-on in Washington, D.C. They are starting to wake up. I hope your video, and I'm sure it has, helped a lot of people pull them together to wake up. You got to act locally, think globally. But everybody out there really just needs to try to, in their little neck of the woods, get things back to where they were, where we still have our freedoms. And again, by the fact of your video and what you're saying to this president, I hope it does reverberate through the country and into Washington. And the only thing we can do is start to rise up against this, of course, peacefully. But this is just getting to the point where we're just mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. And that was your video, and I loved it. And so did 700,000 others, which is awesome.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, what everybody needs to remember is elections have consequences, and we're all living it right now. So, the next time around we have an opportunity to actually right this ship and get things moving in the direction that, the great majority feels like we should be, and, stop this degradation of our rights. So I couldn't agree with you more.
All you have to do is look at Detroit. That's what decades of liberalness is going to get you. And you know what? I'm going to make a prediction. I hope I'm wrong. I wouldn't be surprised if New York re-elects or elects Anthony Weiner and all this stuff, because this is how stupid the low-information voters are. I'm sorry. I'm coming right out and saying it. They're idiots, and they're ideologues, and it is a mental disease up there. And God help us if it does permeate throughout the rest of the country. But I do think a lot of right-minded people are waking up and realizing that this is not the country that our founding fathers wanted, certainly not the country that our fighting men and women are in Afghanistan and Iraq to protect. Because when they come back here, they're probably not even going to recognize what it looked like a couple of years before, which is really a scary thing. Well, Elbert County Sheriff Shayne Heap, Shayne, I really do appreciate you being here on Cowboy Logic Radio. Again, it's elbertcountysheriff.com. Go on that website and you can see all of his stuff and the videos. They're awesome. They are going viral and they need to be seen. And we need to, again, think globally, act locally. You got a lot of good stuff in that video and a lot of good information that I think the mainstream media is not getting out there. So it's a good resource for people to look at. Shayne, thank you so much for for having us here, and it was great. Again, we invited you at the last minute. We do appreciate that. Now go home and take out that potbelly pig before it poops in the house.
I appreciate it. Have a great night.
Shayne, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Well, that was awesome. He's cool. Very cool guy, and it's great. I mean, it gets to the point where I think you really do have to talk, even if politically, he's elected, so his constituents agree with him. But it's getting to the point now where people are really starting to get really frustrated. Well, we had another great show, and I want to just one more time talk a little bit about Betrayed. Oh, here he goes again. Hold on, I lost my notes. This is a Cowboy Logic alert. Carlos, danger. This is a Cowboy Logic alert. Anthony's wiener. Will you stop?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Before we sign off,
hey, did you know the Royals had a baby boy?
Ding.
Hey, did you know the Zimmerman trial ended?
Mainstream media clearly hadn't figured that out yet.
Hey, did you know Al Jazeera is starting in August? And Soledad O'Brien is going to be an anchor. Hey, what does that tell you about the mainstream media's agenda, folks?
Hey, want to tip the hat to my buddy Danny Hamilton again, who went through knee surgery today. Personalize the show a little bit, bring it back down to a very local level. He is definitely in some pain tonight. But I don't know anybody that's, quite frankly, a tougher individual than this gentleman. But
especially
man,
for
we
an
sure
old
are
fart that he is.
Yeah, he is old. But having said that, that's why he had the knee surgery, because he's old.
Hey, we're getting there. We're really close behind, which is really scary.
But I thought it was very cool that when I finally saw him after his surgery today, he had ice and he had this wrap on his left knee that he had the surgery done on, and he had it propped up, and he was enduring some pain. But I found it humorous because on his right knee, which did not have the surgery done, in Sharpie, they had written "wrong" across his knee.
Kind of gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling, doesn't it? Oh, we took off the wrong leg.
Anyway, go to Danny's Facebook site, Danny Hamilton. I think he's standing there in a red shirt with a ball cap on. If you're not friends with him, make sure you friend him. And then say something nice to him. He's hurting right now.
He's a sweetheart. He is a sweetheart. He really does.
He's
have
my
a good
brother.
heart. Yes, he is. From another mother. Again, Billy Vaughn and Karen Vaughn were our guests last week, along with Major General Paul Vallely. And Billy and Karen are the proud parents of Aaron Carson Vaughn, who was killed. He was part of SEAL Team 6. They got bin Laden. And, in fact, he called his parents up and said, "We got him, Mom." That had to be cool. How cool was that? Before anybody else knew that. And then a short time later, months later, I believe, not even, he and 30 of the SEAL Team 6 members were killed in a helicopter accident that's, again, very suspect. A lot of the information slowly creeping out. If the mainstream media, again, would do its job, well, this happened before Benghazi. Yeah. We probably could have had a different outcome with the last election, but that's beside the point. SpecialOpsBetrayed.com is where you can buy the book. The book is called Betrayed, Exposing the High Cost of the War on Terror. It's by Billy Vaughn and General Paul Vallely. And again, it's not out till August, but you can get it at SpecialOpsBetrayed.com and learn about the entire situation that happened with SEAL Team 6 and Extortion 17. Scary stuff. You kind of wonder. You always think your government's not going to do that to you. Well, guess again, bucko, because things are not as they seem.
Get the book and be stunned.
Yes, absolutely. And we, again, also with General Paul Vallely, Major General Paul Vallely, we've partnered with him and his organization, StandUpAmericaUS.org. We invite you to go to all of these websites because it's a lot of good stuff there. Nemo.
And because we said do it.
Nemo Arms.
Nemo Arms. Oh, my gosh.
If you're into guns, you're going to like what General Vallely has there with his Nemo Arms. StandUpAmericaUS.org. And again, we want to thank Elbert County Sheriff Shayne Heap for joining us. His website is elbertcountysheriff.com. And you can see the video we're talking about that went viral about his message to President Obama from a law enforcement point of view. It's awesome. Check it out. If you are a black conservative and you're confused because it's really hard for you to talk about things, we also invite you to go to Frederick Douglass. Hold on. I want to get the whole website here. FrederickDouglassRepublican.com and .org, because that will give you a lot of good talking points to talk to your brothers and sisters and kind of wake them up to the fact that the Democrat Party is not the party to help you better yourself. I'm not saying the Republican Party is the be-all and end-all, but sure as hell is the lesser of two evils. And you can get some good information at that website as well.
Yeah, but this stuff's got to start locally.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, you got to do the liberal thing here and do this grassroots. They're the masters of it, and they've kicked our ass with this.
Yeah.
And now it's time to start playing ball their way. You've got to do this on a local grassroots level. You got to talk to your friends. You got to talk to your family. You got to talk to your workers, your coworkers, your employees, your employer. And you got to educate. You've got to do this, and it's got to be local, and that will breed.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to address that next week. We're going to have a round table. Is that next week?
Yeah, we're going to have a round table, but we're not going to tell you who's on it yet because it's kind of cool.
Well, that'll be one of the things we talk about, though, for sure, is essentially
among
how to
a
combat
million
the
other
left.
things. Because these three guests that are coming on, we may go till 1 o'clock in the morning.
First-hand knowledge. They have first-hand knowledge. They can talk about personal experiences, and we'll elaborate on that on Cowboy Logic Radio and our Cowboy Logic website as well on Facebook. So please check that out. Cowboylogic.us is where you can hear the archive shows as well. And we will see you next Tuesday from 9 to 11 Eastern Time. Thank you all for joining us. Again, hopefully we opened your eyes a little bit to tell you some of the stuff the mainstream media isn't telling you. I have tons of paper here. There's so much more I could have gone through. I could have gone for another 2 hours, but we'll have to hit that next week. Because I'm sure the government's still going to be around next week and still going to be plotting to take your rights away from you little by little, and we got to push back. Hey, have a good week, everybody. A safe and happy week, and enjoy your family, and we will talk to you next Tuesday at 9 o'clock. Unfiltered, politically incorrect common sense. You've been listening to Cowboy Logic Radio, a division of DONNA FIDUCIA Production.